Okay, and finally, D, the big whamma jamma. Let's factor this thing first. So let's focus on that numerator. Going to factor that with grouping. So going to pull out a negative 2x squared from these first two terms. What am I left with? Well, I'm left with an x plus 3. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. 3 times x squared is x squared, so negative 6x squared. X times negative 2x squared is negative 2x cubed. Plus, in my next set, I am going to be adding 2 times x plus 3. So now I have an x plus 3 in both terms, which means I factor that x plus 3 out, and then I look at what's left behind. Well, what's left behind in the first term? Minus 2x squared. What's left behind in the second term? Plus 2. So now I need to keep factoring. I'm finished factoring by grouping, but now I can factor that second binomial further by pulling this negative 2 out. So if I pull the negative 2 out, I'm left with x plus 3 times, pull a negative 2 out of an x, negative 2x squared, I'm left with x squared. Pull a negative 2 out of a positive 2, you're left with a minus 1. Minus 1 times minus 2 is positive 2. One last step, negative 2, x plus 3 times x squared minus 1 is a difference of squares, so x plus 3, what am I talking about? X plus 1, x minus 1. So that then is my numerator. So now let's go to my denominator. Denominator, I have two quadratics. X squared plus 4x plus 3 is going to factor as x plus 3, x plus 1. X squared plus 10x plus 25 is a perfect square trinomial. It will factor as x plus 5 squared. So my entire function then is negative 2 x plus 3 x plus 1 x minus 1 over x plus 3 x plus 1 x plus 5 squared, which means whole. So this thing will simplify to negative 2 times x minus 1 over x plus 5 squared. So it's going to look like that graph, but it's going to have a hole at negative 1 and negative 3. So let's start marking things up. So I said one hole at negative 1, but we need to know the y value of the hole. So we plug into this simplified equation. Let's plug in our negative 1. So we get negative 2 times negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2 over negative 1 plus 5 is 4 squared. So I have 4 times 4 in the bottom. Well, in the top, I have a double negative, so that's positive. And I have 2 times 2, which is 4. So those 2's will cancel out with one of those 4's, and I'll be left with just a positive 1/4. So over here, negative 1, comma, 1/4. And I have another hole, we said, at, what was it, negative 3. So negative 3, comma, let's find the y value. So again, plug in negative 3. So negative 2 times negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4 over negative 3 plus 5 is 5 minus 3 is 2 squared. So I have 2 times 2. Let's just write that as 4, because then I see a double negative and I see a 4 over 4, and I'm left with 2. So my second hole is at negative 3, comma, 2. All right, what about zeros, aka x-intercepts? Well, that's x minus 1 up there, giving me an x-intercept at 1, comma, 0, and it's going to cross there because its multiplicity is odd. Vertical asymptotes coming from the x plus 5 in the bottom. So it's giving me a vertical asymptote at x equals negative 5, and it's a multiplicity 2, so I'm giving myself a reminder that my tails will go together, either both up or both down. Horizontal asymptote, since the degree of the numerator is 1 and the degree of the denominator is 2, my horizontal asymptote will occur at y equals 0. Anytime the degree is bigger on the bottom, the horizontal asymptote is at a y value of 0. So now that I have all my information, let's start sketching it in and show what this graph will look like. So let's draw some axes here. Let's go to negative 1 and positive 1/4, and let's draw in our hole right above the x-axis right there. Let's go to negative 3 and positive 2 and draw our second hole. 0 at 1 comma 0, so we can plot that there. We know it's going to cross. We know there's an asymptote at x equals negative 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we will dash that in nice and neatly. And what else? A horizontal asymptote at y equals 0, so we have that going for us. Okay, well, what do I know? I see that I have my holes up here, so that's telling me that my graph has to be going up like that. Have to connect those two holes like that. Have to connect that hole to that x-intercept. Have to cross at that x-intercept, which means I have to cross underneath the x-axis, but then I have to approach the x-axis because my horizontal asymptote is at y equals 0. So that thing is going to look something like that. Boom, 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 curving up. Should be a nice smooth curve. And then I know, since that asymptote is squared, that since that one is up, this one also has to be up and then curve down to that horizontal asymptote at 0. And there you have our graph. It looks like a little volcano with some holes in it. But there you go. 101 Dalmatians. Yay.